Yes, people. So I've decided I'll do maybe a reaction video to Joe Rogan, his latest podcast with Elon Musk. I feel like Elon. I mean, I've watched about an hour and a half of it, and I feel like there's some pretty interesting things that Elon, states that maybe the average person might miss or not pick up on. So I feel like I should maybe share my thoughts, and we'll see how it goes. All right, cool. So literally in the opening few seconds, they mention Jeff Bezos and his physique, how he's been doing over the last couple of years. And it's true. The guy's gone from scrawny to very muscular. He's got a very defined build. Something that comes to mind for me is that he's developing his own kind of implants, chips. And is it possible that they could have benefits on a human? For training, for muscular trophy, etc. And I believe so. I believe even myself, potentially. I mean, I've been pretty out of shape recently over the last year, but I'm slowly getting back into it. Um, so yeah, I think there's probably a lot of benefits to these chips, and obviously because probably the radicals want to take it another way. They're not being talked about. They're not being, mentioned for the benefits for humanity, which is a bit of a shame. Which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, let's carry on. Age 59 as well. Go on, Jeff Bezos. And then they proceed to show some obviously Giga Chad kind of physique, um, which is mental. I think it's mental because I think it's if the average man had probably a bit more time to do these kind of things, we'd see more people like that, more manly men, with great muscular trophy. And maybe it's even attainable through, technology like this implant. So yeah, and then obviously Elon goes on to make a joke about a tent and a tent bag, and then he proceeds it up with, something like you can shove a you can shove a rock up my ass and it explodes, something similar to that. I think Elon, unfortunately, with what I might have said, um, he may have had some repercussions. And there was also a comment that Donald Trump made in the Oval Office when they were looking about the ceilings, and the gold, etc. I don't want to go into it in too much detail, but maybe something good didn't happen. And then they go ahead to talk about OpenAI, which I believe is another part of this radical Zionist regime, of dominant world control. Obviously, Elon Musk does go on to later in the podcast talk about the kind of regulations you need with AI, how you need to train it correctly. Because of course, if trained incorrectly, and that's the basis, it knows, it could be disastrous. Really, you could basically rewrite history, I suppose. Especially depending on how important that AI becomes. So yeah, I think OpenAI is very dangerous. Obviously, they talk about potential suicide, which was probably a more likely a murder case of a whistleblower. Um, and I'm not surprised in the least. To be fair, it's the kind of thing that these radical Zionists are known for, which is why I'm probably doing these videos. So yeah, let's carry on. And then they briefly mentioned the Three Eye Atlas, which obviously safely passed. But for me, I think we a lot of us are so focused on winning, on maintaining our beautiful life that we often forget that. And even myself, as I'm often thinking about radical Zionism and how bad it is. Um, but there's always bigger problems, and humanity isn't ready for some of these large problems that could be faced from a natural occurrence, like like a meteor crash on Earth, like a solar flare, etc. I was doing some googling the other day, or more accurately, I should say, on an AI chat. Um, and it suggested, the possibilities of world ending or humanity ending, massive disastrous events, and the probabilities, etc. And some of them were, they were not that unlikely. So maybe I'll have it up there somewhere. But yeah, there's definitely, we need to start focusing on what our priorities should be. Um, yeah. And then around 16 minutes to talk about obviously SpaceX and the satellites Starlink system. I think Elon doesn't get enough credit for what he's doing here. Space ultimately could be one of the make or breaks really for America, if you ask me, in my opinion. If space travel was to become a thing, what that could do for the American economy would be massive. All that debt that they have probably could be wiped out quite easily. So yeah, obviously he's leading the charge, and yeah, I think it's an amazing thing. And I also believe it's probably why it's a shame that he's probably getting ripped to bits by these radical Zionists because of me. Um, but yeah, he needs some more credit, I think. And not to mention the motherfucker just made a whole city as well, just for doing that. So yeah, I think it's a big achievement. Yeah, so he mentioned the catching of the heavy stage, the redeployable rocket booster. Um, yeah, amazing. 30 times faster than a handgun, and so heavy. Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. And then obviously they show the different Raptor engines, and I think it's amazing. Um, you know, it's what kind of thing you want to see in this world. Advancements in technology. Um, that's really pushing the boundaries of engineering. So yeah, pretty cool, and obviously all around good stuff. And then obviously to talk about reducing access to space, as well as potentially a scientific space base on the moon, which would probably be amazing. I think Elon Musk is probably an alien sent back to help us, humanity to the right path, and maybe the secrets to the universe lie in space. Not to mention, obviously, the economical benefits of doing space travel, like he's mentioned. Like, shit, let me go to the moon for a day and take a selfie. That'd be pretty dope. And then obviously they showed the Tesla bus. Now, I think it's pretty fucking dope. I think it looks cool. And if there is going to be a future where we don't own anything and we're on universal basic income, as long as this guy is in the reins holding the controls, I think we'll be all right. Because yeah, that looks pretty cool. I wouldn't mind getting like an Uber like app and getting in one of those. Um, but yeah, it looks cool. And he obviously makes a joke about his son saying, "Why does the world look like it's 2015?" Which is funny, and it's not. But obviously, it points to the fact that no real progression has been made in society or across the world for a while now. And why is that? Um, I think the radical Zionists probably are directly to blame for that one. Their war, their profiteering, etc. They've distracted humanity for the wrong reasons. And things need to change, and they need to change quick because you're on a crash course. You're on a crash course for humanity. Um, and it's there's going to be a lot of upset people. If things go west and there's a World War III and there's economy suffering, you're going to have riots. So yeah, and I think this is the main reason I wanted to make this video. Yeah, about 40 minutes into the podcast, they they mentioned potentially the Roadster being a flying vehicle, which would be fucking nuts. Like what? That shouldn't even be possible. But again, this guy is making leaps and bounds for innovation, humanity, technology, and I think it's amazing. I think he doesn't get enough credit. He's obviously getting a lot of hate in the media, being called a Nazi, etc. But ultimately, I think you know, if we want to start making some progression, we need to start listening to this man and shit. Like, if I had some spare money, I'd probably be investing in some stocks right now. Because yeah, that sounds dope. That sounds dope. It's This dude said, "Is it even a car?" Now again, they mentioned how he's able to do all these different things, and he's making massive progress with so many different avenues. How is he managing his time? And it's crazy. It is crazy. He's obviously got a really good team, and he's doing a really good job, if you ask me. For obviously for the Americans as well as for everyone else in the world. And then around 45 minutes in, they're talking about obviously San Francisco, the drug problem, as well as obviously in purchasing X for free speech reasons, you know, uh, woke virus, transgender, etc. But regarding the drug issue, you know, um, is that a problem that humanity is going to see more of? Maybe following COVID. And it's looking pretty disastrous. You mentioned how many billions they're spending on trying to resolve it, and it's obviously not working. Um, so yeah, I think we're in for a tough time. It looks like, but if there's never a better time than the present to start making corrections. So you know, we need to get our priorities right. Ultimately, is what I'm trying to say. I believe. And then about an hour and 7 minutes in, they're talking about the future of technology, i.e., or specifically mobile phones. Elon Musk is definitely on some alien technology shit at this point. He's basically talking about like a handheld device or something where you've seen in movies where it'll be like a video, or sometimes it was like in videos, movies, it's like a projection. Um, but yeah, it's a video interface where with AI embedded into it that can basically do anything you want it to do, or show you anything you want it to do, um, which is pretty cool. Obviously, it might be a couple of years away, but that would be cool. And then at 1 hour 13 minutes into the podcast, they start talking about artificial super intelligence. And I remember the quote where the test basically for super intelligence is, are you able to discern the computer, the algorithm, the machine from a human? So obviously, like in the movie Ex Machina, or Machima, however you say it, it functions like a person. They could even maybe make it look like a person, and you wouldn't be able to differentiate. And they talk about how it's important that it's raised on the correct morals, principles, and training. Because let's say theoretically, this is a big theoretical play here, but let's say you raise it on the fact that Israel has a right to defend itself, and they're the God's chosen people. Now, we've seen how that's played out in Palestine at the minute currently. Imagine that with artificial super intelligence, robots with their own thinking, they can make decisions. Um, we could probably quite quickly find ourselves enslaved by these radical Zionists without even realizing it. And maybe that's something Benjamin Netanyahu understands, and maybe that's why they're investing in so much data centers, and maybe that's why they're supporting AI and machine learning like OpenAI. Um, you know, thing is, no one else is going to ask these quiet type of questions or think this particular way, but I do. And I think, Mr. Musk might realize this as as a potential possibility of humanity facing it, but he can't say these things. He's got too much to lose, and he's probably already suffered quite a lot. But I will, and if things don't change, I'll continue. I'll continue, saying my bit. But hopefully, someone in Trump's team or the president himself can maybe make some changes and get us back on course for humanity. And yeah, he also mentions a little bit himself about it basically rewriting history, which it basically has the potential to do so. If that becomes common word amongst all the AI systems, you can maybe get rid of the fact that maybe Jesus might have been a person of color or something along the lines. Um, lines can get blurred very quickly. And then at 1 hour 24, he makes a comment about, or Elon makes a comment about, how so many people are far left. They're so far left, even the center has changed, it's no longer the center. Um, and same for the far right, I would probably add, you know, people, I think radical Zionism probably has changed people so far right that when you have people like Elon, he's not advocating for socialism, communism, anything. But he's probably a centrist. He probably wants a bit more freedom, opportunities for people, and general companies, being able to do well. Um, and he's seen as probably a leftist, a communist, as someone to hate. Now, I myself are probably, if that's the view, I'm probably far left, a socialist, etc., or communist, if you'd rather put it that way. But yeah. And then now around 34, they start talking about obviously migration into European countries and how bad of a problem it's getting, as well as obviously talk about rapes, etc. But um, we need to start figuring out solutions. And obviously, if we look at some of the if we want to look at some of the solutions to these problems, we need to find out what's causing them. And in my opinion, a lot of this is caused by war. Wars displaced and created a lot of economic migration, as well as obviously recent interest rates and suffering, war, taxes. I can accumulate it all down to maybe a few very particular people, which I will not name.